Want to bring in Josh Skurnik now. He is live in St. Albert, and maybe small there, but today it holds the hearts of all Canadians, and many are going to be crowding the area where you're at this hour.
Karen's, the numbers tell that story. 2,000 uniformed men and women attending the visitation yesterday. The RCMP says they expect thousands to pack Service Place behind me. Well, right now you can see that there's actually 75 people right here starting to really just protest at that exact point, that there is no scientific basis that the government, in their mind, is basing this call on. They did those flyovers. It is true that the horses population has grown over the past decade. Bryn, as one political scientist put it today, Alberta has a history of going through premiers, but this is a Category 8 earthquake. Alison Redford went from being the first female leader of this province to 4 months later getting ousted as a local MLA. When Damien converted to Islam at age 17, his mother says it was good for the troubled teen. It gave him peace and a sense of purpose. But only 3 years later, everything had changed. He was attending a new mosque and a radical study group here in downtown Calgary, many of whose members would leave their families and also go overseas to fight. It was 4 days before New Year's. Police say Fu Lam killed his wife and 6 of her family and friends at a North Edmonton home. The government says no matter what the cost, the feds should foot most of the bill. They say disaster funds should cover 90% of what the province has spent, leaving Albertans off the hook. First off, I want to apologize. It's the Christmas season, so we seem to have a choir behind us. But right now, the entire PC caucus is at Government House voting on what is up to 7 MLAs from the Wild Rose caucus coming over to their team, including the heavy hitters of Wild Rose leader Danielle Smith and her right-hand man, Rob Anderson. On the water highways of British Columbia, ferries have hit rocky waters.
They haven't taken away their bonuses, they haven't taken away their holdbacks. Everyone else seems to get money except for the passengers.
Last week, taxpayer-funded and debt-saddled BC Ferries announced huge changes. 7,000 sailings gone next year. Full weekday discounts for seniors cut in half. And slot machines on board to raise revenue? Is the gambling the concern?
I just think that is a huge mistake. I work in a community school.
Now you come back here, like I have to wait here for 2 hours till my boat comes to go home, right? So for the people that are working over here full time, it's really unfortunate.
Seniors in general, I don't think are making as much money.
And with cuts to the 55,000 customers it carries daily to get out of millions in debt, many wonder why ferry brass won't also feel the pinch. Right before the cuts, BC Ferries announced it ended controversial bonuses for managers and execs. But what it did was simply roll them right into their salaries.
The executives haven't lost a single dollar of pay.
For example, in 2013, BC Ferries CEO Michael Corrigan made a base salary of $364,000. He also got a 6-figure bonus. Now, in 2014, as long as he meets his company targets, he will still take home the same as the year before, $563,000. That's more than 3 times what the ferry boss south of the border in Washington state makes.
Those guys are part of the 1%.
You tell me.
Yeah,
but what about that taxpayer money? Last year, the company got $180 million out of our pockets. $1.4 billion in the past decade. But the government says its hands are tied. Back in 2003, the BC Liberal government made BC Ferries a quasi-private corporation. The former Crown Corp was deep in debt, and the government thought that privatizing it could give it a needed boost. Well, now in 2013, the company says it needs to shed $19 million, and the government can't tell them how to do it.
Oh, it was definitely a mistake. It was a mistake, and there is no evidence that it created a better system. The reality is it's a monopoly.
I think it's all about economics, and I think that's the wrong place to put our values and our priorities.
A company treading murky waters with passengers facing an uncertain horizon. I'm Joshua Skurnik, and this is a Sun News Special Report. From the beginning of the campaign, Tim Hudak has said the College of Trades needs to go, but today in Pickering, he decided to make the issue hit home. by visiting Salon and sharing the stories of workers who say all the bureaucratic red tape is preventing them from enjoying the career that they love. We also learned of people who say that they could lose their jobs. Formed in 2009 under the Liberal government, the Ontario College of Trades regulates 150 different professions in Ontario, created to keep up workplace and customer safety. Critics say it creates needless tests, taxes, and fees for workers across the varied spectrum. Call center operators, bakers, horse harness manufacturers, and hairstylists.
Government's got to focus. We don't need an expensive government bureaucracy to tell people where to get their hair cut. It doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Workers say it's more than just a nuisance. Kaylin Ambrose has 7 years' experience in the salon industry, but says she doesn't do well with the college's exams.
People are better with their hands rather than being on a test.
After failing time and time again, her customers might lose her come the new year.
They're terrified too because they're losing a great stylist and they're losing everybody that is good with their jobs.
It's the bureaucratic red tape, it's the rules, the work rules in place, it's the mandatory written exam after you finish your apprenticing that people have difficulty with. Those who struggle with written exams could do a haircut in their sleep that would absolutely amaze you.
The owner of the salon chain says of the 400 hairstylists she employs, a full 100 of them are greatly affected by this College of Trades, and some are thinking of changing careers now. Joshua Skurnik, Sun News Network, Pickering. It was something everyone knew was coming, but nothing they could truly prepare for.
Today's the day that we say goodbye to Dave.
Never regaining consciousness, 42-year-old Constable David Wynn of the St. Albert RCMP would die 2 days later in hospital, leaving behind a wife and 3 kids. It was the early hours of Saturday the 17th. Wynn and Constable Derek Bond got shot at point-blank range, Wynn in the head, during a routine arrest at a St. Albert casino. Bond survived. The two were investigating this man, the shooter, 34-year-old Sean Wren, for a stolen vehicle. Wren would lead police on a 9-hour chase before dying himself in an abandoned house.
The suspect, who I can tell you is sadly very, very well known to the police.
A rap sheet since the age of 15 for assault. Wren had 61 prior convictions to his name, 29 more charges pending. In and out of jail 2 to 3 years at a time. A parole board hearing put it bluntly. The continued progression of your criminal behavior and attitude of indifference clearly demonstrate your lack of respect for the law and rights of others. The board believes that you are a dangerous person.
Do you understand the meaning of all of the charges?
Audio of the 2 bail hearings for Wren's pending charges show of the 11 months between when he was first arrested and then posted his second bail with 3 pending cases, Wren would only spend 2 months in pretrial custody. The second bail hearing, an Edmonton constable acted as prosecutor and didn't argue to keep Wren behind bars. Those charges included weapons.
What is the Crown's position then, please, on release?
Your Worship, we have agreed on a joint release in the amount of $4,500.
Could this incident have been prevented? That's a question that I ask as well.
As the memorials grow amidst all the questions, the one thing certain is Canada has lost an officer in the line of duty. Joshua Skurnik, Sun News Network, Edmonton. For Chris Boudreau, wandering thoughts don't wander for long.
When I'm by myself and it's nighttime and the stars are out, I do a lot of thinking.
Of how things could have ended differently.
And the worst part is when I think about what Damien would have gone through in his last moments.
For a son lost in a foreign land.
Wish he would come home every day.
For a cause that took his life.
But I guess that can't happen.
This past winter, Boudreau received the news. Her 22-year-old son Damien had died, fighting as a jihadist in Syria. His story is just one of a growing tale of young Canadians seduced by radical Islam. When Damien converted to Islam at age 17, his mother says it was good for the troubled teen. It gave him peace and a sense of purpose. But only 3 years later, everything had changed. He was attending a new mosque and a radical study group here in downtown Calgary, many of whose members would leave their families and also go overseas to fight. Just last month, the media identified 2 Calgary brothers from the same apartment building as Damien, gone to Syria.
My name is Abu Muslim. I'm your brother in Islam here in Syria. I originally come from Canada.
Foreign terrorists use Canadians as propaganda tools. Death, an example of martyrdom.
There is an issue here, and the RCMP acknowledges that, and we have been working diligently with our partners and the Calgary Police Service, that's for sure.
Boudreau has gone as far as Europe to meet other mothers who have lost sons. She says the stories are all the same.
He was a smart kid. He was athletic. He was brilliant. Actually, when he left, he spoke French and English fluently.
Despite all Damien had going for him, he had his demons.
Depression, not really fitting in. Unfortunately, he attempted to take his own life.
Islam gave Damien peace, no drugs or drinking, stability. But a new mosque, new apartment, and new friends brought a new outlook on life.
He started becoming adamant about taking on more than one wife. He started having discussions with regards to world politics and what was going on in the world, what was happening in Syria and the Middle East, and that nobody was doing anything about it.
Youth group eventually trumped time with family. He became secretive.
I didn't meet any of the new friends. He kept it separate. If he got phone calls, he'd take them outside.
In November 2012, Damien told his parents he had gone to Egypt to study linguistics, until one phone call.
When I finally did confront him, once I found out from CSIS where he was, and I confronted him, he admitted it right away. I told him that I'd seen it on the country, like a country code on my phone, and he admitted, yeah, that's where he was. And then he told me that he was there to help women and children. They were being tortured. And he was adamant about staying there, and he said he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want to hurt me. I'd lost a son in 2001, and he knew it completely destroyed me, and he didn't want me to go through that again, so he didn't want me to worry.
So your son was still there?
Yeah, at that time.
Boudreau says she has nothing against Islam. It's the rare few who bend the minds of the vulnerable, regardless of religion, is who she wants other parents to watch for.
So it was poor guidance, brainwashing. That wasn't the right thing to believe. We were so close.
On the walls, there is only one picture of a grown Damien amongst his siblings.
I don't know how I got him to do that one. That was November 2011.
It's not because of choice. If you had more pictures, would you put them up?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't want to forget him. He's still in my heart. And it breaks me every time. And I guess I just want to keep remembering him the way I knew him. There was so much about him to love.
It's the sons who make the headlines. It's the families who are left to grieve. I'm Joshua Skurnik, and this is a Sun News Special Report.